Welcome back to Peaceful Soul. Have you ever woken up in the morning and felt like life was so heavy that you couldn't even pull yourself out of bed? Have you ever looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? As if all the light in your eyes had quietly disappeared? I've heard stories like that from hundreds of patients over the years. And today, I want to share with you one very special story. This isn't just about depression, anxiety, or sleepless nights that seem to last forever. It's about a woman who believed she had tried everything possible, yet still couldn't escape the grip of darkness. She went from hospital to hospital, cycled through countless medications, even experimented with the latest treatments, and in the end, she was convinced there was no hope left for her. But then, from the smallest, most ordinary changes, something remarkable began to happen. Before I take you through her journey, I need to be clear about one thing. This is not a video about some miracle cure. I'm not here to sell you the idea that there's one pill, one herb, or one program that can fix everything. If that were true, we wouldn't see millions of Americans struggling with anxiety and depression every single year. What you're about to hear is something far more human and in many ways, far more powerful. Healing comes from small steps, from persistence, from the choices we make in the face of pain, and from the strength of the connections around us. I remember the first time she walked into my office. Her eyes were sunken with exhaustion, her hair unkempt, her voice barely above a whisper. She told me she hadn't slept through the night in months, that every meal was just a few forced bites, that even showering or stepping outside felt impossible. When I asked what brought her in this time, after so many failed attempts, she just sighed and said, "Doctor, I have nothing left to lose." In that moment, I realized I wasn't just sitting across from a patient. I was sitting with someone standing at the edge of despair, but also with someone who still had a small, fragile spark of belief that maybe, just maybe, there was still a way out. My job wasn't to hand her a magical treatment plan. It was to walk beside her and help her reclaim the pieces of life that had slowly slipped away. You know, in medicine we often chase after the newest advancements, new drugs, new technology, new therapies. But sometimes, in the fight against depression and anxiety, what we need isn't more complexity, it's simplicity. What we need isn't to erase pain completely, but to learn how to live with it, so it no longer dictates every decision we make. If you've ever battled insomnia, you know the torture of watching the clock tick minute by minute. The harder you try to sleep, the more impossible it feels. Your mind races with thoughts like, how am I going to get through tomorrow? Will I even have the strength to work? Am I broken beyond repair? And as dawn creeps in, you're utterly drained, but still wide awake. That's the vicious cycle my patient was trapped in for years. She once told me mornings were the worst. When the alarm rang, instead of thinking about starting her day, she felt a crushing weight on her chest. The thought of getting dressed, talking to someone, or even stepping outside felt unbearable. So she'd stay in bed for hours, hiding from the world. But that only led to more guilt, more self-blame, and the same cycle of despair all over again. To many people on the outside, she probably looked lazy or unmotivated. But as a doctor who spent years studying mental health, I knew the truth. This wasn't laziness, it was depression. In its rawest form, when the brain is exhausted, even the smallest tasks feel like mountains you can't climb. And that's why today's video isn't just about telling you her story. It's about showing you that no matter where you are in your own journey, there is hope. Even if you've tried everything and feel like nothing works, change is still possible. And sometimes, that change doesn't come from something big. It starts with something as simple as choosing to sit up and answer a phone call from the chair instead of from the bed. In the next few minutes, we'll walk through her journey, from the failed attempts, to the moments where it seemed there was no way out, to the turning point that changed everything. I'll share the specific habits that actually helped her heal, not based on myths or internet quick fixes, but on science-backed practices. I'll also bring you stories from other people I've worked with, so you can see that recovery, while never easy, is always possible. And finally, we'll draw from proven research and highlight the key lessons anyone can apply to their own life. This isn't going to be a shallow conversation. It's an invitation to step into a real journey, a journey of finding hope again, one step at a time. So, are you ready to begin? Many people believe that finding the right doctor or the right medication will make emotional pain disappear. But Emily's journey, a 32-year-old woman from the US, tells a harsher truth. For years, she tried nearly everything: prescription drugs, psychotherapy, and even trendy new treatments heavily promoted as breakthroughs. Instead of healing, she became more exhausted and increasingly lost faith in recovery. Emily was diagnosed with severe depression and chronic anxiety. Her doctor prescribed an SSRI antidepressant, considered the gold standard. In the first few weeks, she felt a slight lift, but the relief faded. Sleepless nights, relentless fatigue, and overwhelming negative thoughts crept back, stronger than before. She described the experience as being trapped in a pitch-dark room with every exit locked. When medication stopped working, Emily turned to EMDR, often used to treat trauma. At first, she thought this might finally unlock the door, but after dozens of sessions, what she got were only brief moments of relief. Research from the National Institute of Mental Health has confirmed this pattern. While EMDR can be effective for PTSD, results for chronic depression vary widely. For Emily, it felt like a flicker of light, far too faint to illuminate the darkness. Refusing to give up, she tried ketamine infusions, a treatment hailed as a revolution for treatment-resistant depression. During the first session, Emily felt an almost out-of-body calm, as though the weight of her pain had lifted. But within days, the shadows returned. Science supports this experience. Ketamine acts fast, but its effects are often short-lived, and concerns about sustainability and dependency remain. For Emily, it was yet another heartbreak. In desperation, she experimented with natural approaches, CBD oil, energy therapies, even neurofeedback. These gave her small sparks of hope, but nothing truly changed. Some small studies suggest CBD may ease anxiety, yet major medical organizations caution that the evidence is still too thin. Emily realized she was once again placing her trust in uncertain territory. As time passed, her physical and emotional health both collapsed. She lost weight, abandoned hobbies she once loved, and withdrew from friends and family. After one particularly sleepless night, she was admitted to the hospital in severe exhaustion. Weeks of inpatient treatment followed, combining medication, group therapy, and a rigid daily schedule. Yet once she left that structured environment, Emily quickly slipped back into the same destructive cycle. At her lowest point, her doctor suggested ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. Fearful but desperate, she agreed. After several treatments, she did feel slight improvement, but the cost was heavy: memory problems, mental fog after each session. For Emily, the fear of losing her memories felt more terrifying than depression itself. She chose to stop. All these experiences left her with one overwhelming feeling: complete exhaustion and helplessness. A study in the Journal of Affective Disorders found that treatment-resistant depression patients often go through 4 to 6 different interventions before seeing any benefit. Many never find one that works. Emily feared she belonged to that group. What scared her most was not the symptoms themselves, but the loss of hope. When a person believes, "Nothing can save me anymore," that's the most dangerous place of all. Emily admitted she often thought about giving up entirely, but in the moment when it seemed like there was nothing left, an unexpected door opened, and the turning point didn't come from expensive drugs. It began with small, simple habits in daily life. After a string of failures, Emily almost believed her life would remain forever in darkness. Yet at her most exhausted point, she began to realize something important. Maybe she didn't need to search for a miracle cure. Maybe what she needed was to start again from the smallest, simplest steps. The beginning was almost ordinary. One morning, instead of grabbing her phone and staying under the covers as usual, Emily pushed herself to sit up and move to the living room chair to answer messages. It was such a tiny shift, yet it felt as if she had broken out of the cocoon that had trapped her for months. The next day, she tried showering earlier, dressing neatly, and taking her dog for a walk around the block. At first, she had to force herself out the door, but once she felt the cool morning breeze on her face and the soft sunlight warming her skin, a kind of clarity emerged, something no medication had ever given her. From that moment, Emily built what she called her morning ritual. The first step was leaving the bed as soon as she woke up, without reaching for her phone. The second was a warm shower and putting on real clothes, as if preparing for an important day. The third was walking her dog for at least 10 minutes. The fourth was journaling in 3 parts: one small victory from yesterday, one intention for today, and one thing she was grateful for right now. At first glance, these habits might seem far too simple to stand up against depression. But the very simplicity of them became the foundation for change. Psychology research has shown that small, consistent habits often create deeper, more lasting transformation than big, dramatic shifts that quickly fade. Another key piece was what Emily learned from acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, the practice of saying yes to life. Instead of fighting her negative thoughts, she learned to observe them. Whenever the thought, "I'm worthless, I'll never get better," arose, Emily repeated to herself, "This is just a thought, not the truth." Creating this distance meant she no longer drowned completely in her anxiety. Alongside that, Emily began a short mindfulness practice, 5 quiet minutes a day, focusing only on her breath or the feeling of her feet touching the ground. At first, her mind raced restlessly, but over time, she realized that dark emotions and troubling thoughts were like clouds drifting across the sky. They came and went, but they were not who she was. It's worth noting that Emily didn't recover overnight. Some days she slipped back, staying in bed until noon and letting fatigue swallow her whole. Yet instead of calling those days a failure, she began to treat them as small stumbles, and tried again the next morning. This gentle persistence, free from harsh self-judgment, changed the course of her recovery. Step by step, she returned to things she once thought were impossible: sharing a family dinner, cooking a simple meal for herself, calling an old friend, or walking farther than usual. Each act, though small, slowly rebuilt her trust in herself. One quote from psychologist Jon Kabat-Zinn stayed with her: "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." From then on, Emily stopped trying to block every wave of pain, and instead focused on standing steady in the ocean of her life. When Emily began reflecting on her journey, she realized that change hadn't come from some magical pill. Instead, it was the small, consistent habits that truly made a difference. And it was those simple actions that became the foundation of her recovery. To start with, Emily spent a few minutes each morning with her journal. In it, she wrote down things she felt grateful for, small intentions for the day, and even the tiniest victories. Some days, the victory was nothing more than getting out of bed on time. Other days, gratitude came from the warmth of a cup of tea or the comfort of a hug from her dog. Interestingly, research in positive psychology has shown that practicing gratitude regularly can activate areas of the brain linked to satisfaction and stress regulation. For Emily, this practice felt like a daily dose of mental vitamins, helping her step out of the negative spiral and reconnect with life's simple values. Alongside writing, Emily learned to accept her heavy thoughts instead of trying to push them away. That's the essence of acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. Whenever self-critical voices echoed in her head, things like, "I'm useless, I'll never get better," she tried changing how she responded. She reminded herself that it was just a thought, not a fact. Sometimes she even repeated the phrase in a silly voice, or pretended a cartoon character was saying it, which made those dark thoughts feel lighter. According to research by Stephen C. Hayes, the founder of ACT, this practice of diffusion not only reduces anxiety and depression, but also helps people live more freely in alignment with their true values. For Emily, it was like finally understanding that she didn't need to fix herself. She just needed to learn how to walk alongside herself. At the same time, Emily began paying closer attention to her sleep. For years she had struggled with restless nights. By applying sleep hygiene practices, she set a consistent bedtime, reduced blue light exposure from her phone, and replaced late scrolling with reading or calming music. These small changes had a direct impact on her rest, helping her brain recharge and improving her mood the next day. Beyond sleep, her body also needed movement. At first, she simply walked her dog around the block. Gradually, those walks grew longer. Each time she inhaled the fresh morning air, she felt a surge of energy flowing through her. Medical research has shown that regular physical activity, Even something as simple as walking can ease symptoms of anxiety and depression by boosting endorphin production and improving blood flow to the brain. For Emily, every step was like a quiet reminder that she was still here and still moving forward. As these habits wove together, they formed a safety net for Emily. None of them were magical on their own, but through daily repetition, they slowly built her inner strength. And because of that, Emily didn't just escape the darkness she once lived in, she also rediscovered how to savor life's small moments: a warm cup of tea, a shared smile with a loved one, or the calm stillness of early morning. When it comes to recovery, Emily's journey is just one piece of a much larger picture. In reality, so many others have walked similar paths, each bringing their own proof of how persistence and small daily habits can shape transformation. Take the story of Mark. For example, a former soldier, he returned from service haunted by the nightmares of PTSD. For years, he tried to bury the battlefield memories with alcohol and silence. Nothing truly shifted until Mark began keeping a daily journal. He didn't write to retell what had happened, he wrote to release his emotions, to face his fears, and to capture the fragile bits of hope still left inside him. That simple routine showed him that while the past couldn't be erased, the present was still his to reshape. Then there's Linda, a single mother struggling with postpartum depression. She once felt broken, ashamed that she couldn't care for her baby the way she wished. But when she joined a local walking group with other moms, something shifted. Those casual conversations, those shared loops around the park, gave her not just a healthier body but also a sense of connection and understanding. Slowly, Linda found her way out of isolation and began to believe again that she was never truly alone. And we can't forget Daniel, a businessman burned out by endless stress. After countless nights of insomnia, he made a decision to create an evening ritual for himself. He turned off all devices, spent a few minutes in deep breathing, and ended the night with a physical book instead of a glowing screen. Over time, his sleep became steadier, his focus sharpened, and with it came the calm, clarity, and enthusiasm he thought he'd lost for good. These stories remind us that recovery has no single formula. One person may find strength in community, another may heal through writing, while someone else begins with nurturing their sleep. Yet at the core, they all share a truth: change is born from small steps, repeated over and over until they become the foundation of resilience. And so, each story carries the same message: no matter where you are on your journey, hope is always within reach. Sometimes that hope begins with the smallest act, one that might seem insignificant at first. But with patience and persistence, it can grow powerful enough to change the course of an entire life. When looking back at the entire journey, one key point becomes clear: mental recovery does not come from a magical pill or a single method. Instead, real change is built from many small pieces repeated with persistence. Research in psychology has shown that small habits, when practiced consistently, can significantly affect the nervous system and our ability to regulate emotions. For example, studies from the University of California have demonstrated that practicing gratitude through journaling can increase levels of serotonin and dopamine, the neurotransmitters closely tied to happiness and motivation. These biological changes don't happen overnight, but when nurtured over time, they act like a steady current, helping the brain gradually break free from the cycle of negativity. Meanwhile, acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, which focuses on embracing thoughts while committing to purposeful action, has been validated by numerous studies as effective for chronic anxiety and depression. By learning to separate themselves from negative thoughts rather than trying to erase them, people create new mental space to choose their responses and regain a sense of agency in their lives. Another factor that science strongly supports is sleep. Neuroscience research has shown that sleep not only restores the body but also helps the brain process emotional memories, easing the overload of the sympathetic nervous system. When individuals learn to build healthy sleep habits, from turning off electronic devices early to maintaining a consistent bedtime, they create a biological foundation essential for recovery. And of course, physical activity plays an irreplaceable role. Many studies have confirmed that movement, even something as simple as daily walks, boosts endorphin levels, the body's natural chemicals that relieve pain and improve mood. Exercise also enhances the brain's plasticity, supporting the formation of new habits and strengthening resilience against stress. Taken together, all these scientific insights point to one clear lesson: recovery is not a final destination, but a process. It is built from small changes, from persistence, from an attitude of acceptance, and from the belief that every single day can be a step forward. If you're watching this video and recognize that you're facing similar challenges, remember, you are not alone. You have the right to begin again, starting from the smallest things: a gratitude journal, a short walk, or even a slow, mindful breath. And if today's message brought you a bit of inspiration or hope, I invite you to press the like button so that more people can find this message. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories and science-based insights on mental health. Most importantly, share your thoughts or experiences in the comments, because your story may become the encouragement someone else needs on their own path to healing. Always remember, no matter how tough it gets, there is always room for hope. And often, that hope begins with one small habit you choose to start today.